Oh, welcome back to Adobe Illustrator quick tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about the pen tool. Now the pen tool has multiple options to it. If we just click and hold on the icon in the tool panel, we are given four different options. The pen tool, the add anchor point tool, the delete anchor point tool, and the anchor point tool. Now we'll get into these in just a moment, but let me go ahead and start with the pen tool. So the pen tool isn't necessarily like a pencil or a pen that you would use with your own hand. It's very it's different in the way it works, and I'm going to try to explain that to you now. So if I wanted to create something, so say if I just wanted to make a square, and this is without having obviously this square tool. If I just went ahead and started, click, hold. I'm going to be holding shift during this exercise too a lot, so I will let you know when I'm doing it so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to hold down shift right now and get out there and I mean rough square here. Okay, so there it is, there's my shape, and a few things that happened while I was doing that. So I'm going to just do this one more time. So as I click, um, you'll notice that I have these guides that pop up, and I also have some dimensions that float alongside here. That can be found in your view menu, and I'll just go ahead and click off of this real quick. If you go to view, in your menus, if you go down to guides and right below it, smart guides, click that on, you'll get this type of information. Knowing that this comes up and it says a path, this is an intersection point. If I hover in here, it'll say intersect, which will also be the center of this piece here. It'll say anchor here, anchor there. It'll basically just let me know a few things. It'll also make finding alignments a lot easier. So say if I just want to make a triangle, I'll click down here and I want to add that to this right here. And as you can tell here, there's a little icon, a little circle icon that shows up just below the pen tool itself as you're using it. So when you come to another anchor point, that little circle just means they're closing a path. You're essentially just making it an object at that point and not just a series of lines. So by doing that, I can click here and create my shape. So now I have a square and a triangle. So um, that's easy enough to do, and it's not too difficult. The more difficult part about the pen tool is really doing rounded corners and using the Bezier function of it all. So if we look at this here, if I just want to go ahead and click, and this is very generalized, so please feel free to play around. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a circle here, half circle, and I'm just going to kind of make an odd little circles slash square-like shape. And I'm going to run through this just so you can see what you can do. Um, there are definitely other methods, but I'm just showing you this as an example. So I made this basically a circle with a line through it object here, and it's a full object. I can apply colors to this now. I can do whatever I want to it. But the whole point of it is the way you want to use the curve tool. You can use it in a number of fashions. The first one is just freehanding, which is just making curves. And all I'm doing is clicking and dragging. And as I'm going through this, you notice that these anchors where I leave my points, I get um, these little handles that come up here that basically give me a little bit more control over the object that I'm creating. So that is, I mean, essentially the pen tool, that's what it does. You just really need, and I'm going to say this and um, don't take it the wrong way, but you really do need to play with this toy because it's not necessarily something you're going to pick up immediately. Even this tutorial as a guide for you, you can do a number of different things, but honestly, practice, practice, practice is what's going to get you to the point where you're comfortable and you're able to extremely use these tools for their function and for their usefulness extremely well. So just keep practicing and keep using, just keep learning, and that's really what it boils down to. Um, but let me give you a good example here. So I'm going to just type out the letter M here using my type tool. I know we haven't really gotten to that point yet, but we're going to kind of play with this for a second. So I'm going to go to my type, and I'm going to choose a different font. So let's see. Sure, that looks fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this font, this M that I have, and I am going to turn it into an outline. Okay, so it no longer has text properties. It's only an outlined object now. And I can go ahead now and with the pen tool kind of mess around with this. So if I wanted to, I can come in here and tweak like the anchor points by selecting the wide arrow tool first. You can go in here and go right down here to anchor point tool. You can just grab that, and with the anchor point tool, you can manipulate quite a bit. As you can tell, it's really manipulating the inside area of the M here, and I can, I can bow it out, I can hold down shift, I can keep my proportions exact, and all I'm going to do is, slightly modify it. And this is really a good way to start making really interesting text changes, logo formations, trying to come up with an idea for a client or anything like that. Messing around with fonts and just kind of playing around and making them different is really a good way to develop that. And I'm just going to mess with this a little bit more. And, I can honestly see this as no longer as an M, but more like a B. And if I really wanted to, I can, really take this to another whole other level really quick by creating a very unique form to this. And it's really kind of an interesting tool, the pen tool. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. Now, the add anchor point tool is very, very in your face, basic stuff. Here, we're going to click and we've just added an anchor point. Okay, where this comes in handy, and let me just back up here. So I'm going to add an anchor point to the very top in the center of this M. Now, here's two things. I just took it off there. I'm going to select the points in between here, and I'm just going to pull it down. And as you can tell, it left a very unique shape here. Okay, so if I wanted to, I can take the same area with the anchor point tool here, and see how it completely rounded that off for me, and I no longer have those really odd ends. That's one of the unique features of this. Now, by adding an anchor point tool, you can click on that section again. And the thing is with anchor points, it's a little different than just adding a point and then being able to edit. You almost have to think about the anchor point as the point where you're going to do the work, but you also have to allow the area to do the work in. So what I mean by that is I'm going to add an anchor point on either side of this anchor point. So if I wanted to, change and really focus on this particular area, and there's an element that I really wanted to make use of in this area, I would then add these 3 anchor points, find my center anchor point where I would actually be making the modification, and I would just grab that and make my modification. Now, it really depends on what you're trying to do, and you can make and do just about anything, but you just need to have a little bit more of a plan in hand when you are doing this. So right now, it's just the the anchor point tool here that I'm using is basically just giving me options on how to curve it out, how to change it, and it kind of shows me in a preview beforehand what I'm about to do. And if I just want like a slight little ripple in the side of that M, that's what I wanted, and that's what I get. So it really just depends on how you're using it to really get the full function of the tool. Now, the same thing goes with the delete anchor point tool. You kind of have to think ahead of what you're doing, because let me show you what can happen. So say, okay, I don't really like this too much. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to delete those other 2 anchor points that I put in there, okay? And then I'm like, well, maybe I want to get rid of this point here. Well, by doing that, and let me just zoom in here so you can really see what happens. So I'm going to delete this anchor point here at the base, and I'm going to just delete it. Now, what happens is that the other anchor points have to basically take over that line segment that is now gone. So it'll modify based on their angles and the way their lines are going. So if you wanted to say keep a certain section of this, say if you say this, okay, give you an example. Say you wanted this just flat, okay? I'll pull out my rulers here, and I'm going to say I want just this little area flat, okay? So what you got to do, same kind of deal, is I'm going to go ahead and add 2 anchor points here and here. This will give me the structure I need to eliminate this point and create a flat path here. And now I'm going to go back to my delete anchor point tool, click on that, and now I'm going to remove the anchor point that I want to get rid of. Now, where's the flat line, David? Well, let me tell you. So if you go to anchor point tool and you click on these line segments, it'll actually flatten out that line segment on the 2 ends that it's attached to. Okay? So right now, if I take off my ruler, this is essentially flat. Now, I could really, modify it and align it and do all that, but that's what I really wanted to do. And if I undo that, I have a slight rounded face here. Now, there's a number of ways to approach this too. If you needed to make something flat, you can either grab it and start pulling it in, and you can eyeball this. You can hold down Shift. You can see what's going to happen. But for the most part, it can be a very simple, effective little tool just to make slight modifications and also to create things that are obviously unique and not something you can just find. So with all that in mind, I'm going to create something very quickly here. Let's just make ourselves a tree, okay? So this is my tree, and I'm basing this just off a standard type of tree, uh, Christmas tree, I guess you would find. And I am gonna, there's my one side of my tree. Now, I am going to show you some other techniques here. So we're going to take this tree, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and that's going to give me my 2 arrows. I have a black arrow and a white arrow. I'm going to Shift, Alt, hold this, and drag it over. And as you can tell, it's created a copy for me. And all I really have to do is rotate this, which I'm just going to go down here quickly to the rotate tool, and I'm going to show you something really quite cool. And I'm actually using the flip function or the reflect function. So we flip this right here, right around one, and there you go. You got yourself a tree. And using your Pathfinder, combine the shape, and then you can create a nice little Christmas tree. And I mean, that's just one little example. You can obviously use this for anything you wanted to. If you really are interested in learning more about how to create things with the pen tool and using it really more functionally in a work or production environment, I will invite you to check out my course. I have an entire course. It's about 3 to 4 hours of just getting into the nitty-gritty of all the different types of things that you can do with the pen tool and other functions in Illustrator to really create and make any type of vectorized type of artwork. My course is called How to Vectorize Anything, and if you are interested in taking the course, please take a look at the link below. I do have a summary that goes over exactly what you'll be learning, and each each part of the course and the modules, you do have a exercise file that I do present to you, and I give you some other files along with it. And you also, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, you can go to my YouTube page, and you'll be able to find the HTVA, which stands for How to Vectorize Anything, course description, and I have a little video and I go over it a little bit more in detail there as well. So thanks again for watching, and I hope this was useful. And if you have any questions, if you have any insights or thoughts, please feel free to let me know, and we'll look forward to the next week, and we'll talk to you soon.